last but not least is Stephen Steinlight, whose day job is a senior policy analyst with the Center for Immigration Studies. He's actually testified on this very issue before the House of Representatives a few years back, and actually that testimony is online at our website as well. He's a former policy director at the American Jewish Committee, a former vice president at the National Conference of Christians and Jews, and has thought about and written about this issue at some length. Steve?
Good morning. It's a pleasure to join my colleagues on this panel, my younger brothers in faith, as Pope John Paul the Great characterized the spiritual kinship between Jews and Christians. It will concentrate our minds wonderfully, to paraphrase Dr. Johnson, if I dispense with a preface and cut to the chase. Our opponents on immigration policy do battle with quivers ostensibly devoid of substantive arguments. They have them all right, but the real motives that drive their case are too narrowly chauvinistic, politically cynical, ideologically foreign, or too brutal to share openly with the American people. Among these are encouraging extreme identity politics, ethnic pandering for political gain, raw economic greed as corporate members of their alliance work to create a permanent underclass to rebarbarize American capitalism, and advancing a post-Americanism, which includes explicit and implicit rejection of the moral authority of the nation-state. Whether articulated with questionable innocence in irresponsible platitudes by princes of the church, or in the thinly veiled sneers of my own politically correct clergy, the tenets of our civil creed, the bonds that unite us, are devalued or derided: patriotism, civic virtue, love of knowable community, belief in a common destiny, faith in the rule of law. Our clerical opponents recognize they dare not make this underlying logic public. Thus, they habitually resort to three pseudo-arguments, each an evasion suffused with disingenuous moralism. They argue ad misericordiam, seeking to inculcate guilt in ordinary Americans about the plight of illegal aliens for whom they wish to engender sympathy, greater sympathy, in fact, than for the unemployed and impoverished of their fellow citizens. This logical fallacy's essence, whether employed by religious or secular advocates, is arguing that particular actions or particular policy follow pity. Since they build their case, or this part of their case, on compassion, we must note that on this miserably unjust planet of 7 billion human beings, 3 billion have nothing at all, while Mexicans are the richest in the third world, possessing twice the income of the most wretched. Selective compassion for Mexicans is comprehensible only when viewed through the prism of narrowly defined communal, political, commercial, and yes, sectarian religious interest. Second, our opponents level ugly charges of xenophobia or racism against those who disagree with them. And third, with arrogant religiosity, they assert Gott mit uns, God is with us, engaging in advocacy exegesis, abusing scripture to hoodwink a religious nation, perhaps deluding themselves into the bargain. Our purpose today is not theirs. We offer varying perspectives from our faith tradition to address questions arising in the context of immigration. None of our scriptures address immigration directly, certainly not as we understand it in modern historical terms, though we must work through analogy. Our views come from knowledge of our traditions, but are finally subjective interpretations. This reticence about religious claims is essential. God and God's intentions are ineffable. No faith tradition has only one response to these questions. Scripture speaks with many voices, rarely reducible to a single meaning, nor can any be understood outside of context. We should walk humbly amid our sacred texts. In early 16th century Judaism, an historic hermeneutical enterprise encapsulated a long tradition of oral and written biblical commentary into what remains authoritative. Its Hebrew title is Mikraot Gedolot, in English, Great Happenings. Also known as a rabbinic Bible, it embodies Judaism's belief that faith and intellectual rigor are partners, that understanding the divinely inspired words of the Bible's authors require interpretation, and that multiple perspectives yield the most thoughtful answers, not reductivism. A rabbinic Bible contains two targums, interpretive translations of Hebrew into Aramaic, the lingua franca of biblical times. One is the Eastern or Babylonian Targum of Onkelos, a Greek monk and convert to Judaism. The other, the Western or Jerusalem Targum of Rabbi Jonathan. On each page, rabbinical narrative is surrounded by the commentaries of 6 great medieval exegetes, including Maimonides of Andalusia and Rashi of Troyes in France. Our opponents, who cherry-pick and dumb down sacred texts, are shameless reductionists, and they regard one passage from the Hebrew Bible as their trump card. And yes, it's been referred to. Leviticus 19:33-34. I'll recite it. When an alien lives with you in your land, do not mistreat him. The alien living with you must be treated as one of your native born. Love him as yourself, for you were aliens in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. This passage expresses the ethical universalism central to classical Judaism. Many liberal adherents regard it as Judaism's totality, though it is but half of a dialectic counterbalanced by another, strong particularism, including national and civilizational allegiances. One of Scripture's greatest expressions of moral empathy, the passage from Leviticus, is not a press release from God's Legislative Affairs Office in Washington endorsing comprehensive immigration reform. It says nothing about immigration, for which there is no word in biblical Hebrew, or amnesty, extended family reunification, birthright citizenship, guest workers, identity theft, eligibility for Obamacare, bilingualism, etc. The Hebrew Bible's authors did not anticipate the debate on immigration in 21st century America, and they do not address it in Leviticus. This self-evident truth should prevent clergy or lay leaders from treating it like political talking points, but they do. And they cite legislative particulars as though the Bible were written by policy wonks. I wonder if they would dare cite Leviticus on gay marriage or, say, the death penalty. Their approach drenches political advocacy with arrogant religiosity, dangerously sanctifying partisanship. Does Leviticus 19:33-34 address, let alone endorse, comprehensive immigration reform? Not by the most lenient interpretive standard. It commands empathy, even love for the other, for Gentiles, asserting humanity's oneness and God's omnipotence. It commands us to treat the other, the stranger, kindly, the stranger residing with us temporarily and lawfully. It commands nothing more and nothing else. Utilizing this passage for an argument for amnesty requires its conscious mistranslation. This is not an esoteric quibble. The word for stranger in the Hebrew Bible is ger v'toshav, sojourner in English, first appearing in Genesis to describe Abraham when he dwells briefly with the Hittites in Kiryat Arba. Its final appearance is in Chronicles when King David contrasts the transitory nature of human existence with the eternality of God. The eminent scholar Richard Elliott Friedman, professor of biblical Hebrew at Oxford and Cambridge universities, translates it as alien and visitor. All English dictionaries define to sojourn as to stay temporarily. Arguing some 11 million illegal aliens should remain here permanently finds no support in Leviticus. Look for it someplace else.